Let me tell you about Frank. He's 73. He spends his evenings in his recliner after dinner, and for years his blood sugar readings crept higher and higher no matter how careful he was during the day. What surprised him wasn't what he was eating, it was what happened in the 3 quiet hours afterward, while he was just sitting there. Here's the study that changed how I talk to patients like Frank. In 2022, researchers at the University of Houston, publishing in the journal iScience, discovered a single small seated movement that reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by 52%, while sitting down, no gym, no medication, 52%. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that movement is, why it works better than almost anything else studied for this specific purpose, and 3 other moves that stack with it to make those after-meal hours the most powerful window in your entire day for managing blood sugar. Stay with me, because I'm counting these down from 4 to 1, and the biggest number is saved for last. I'm Dr. David Coleman, and after years of watching patients fixate entirely on what's on their plate while ignoring what happens in the hours after they eat, I want to correct that gap today. Here's everything ahead. Why the 3 hours after a meal matter just as much as the meal itself. Move 4, a free change to the order you eat your food. Move 3, a humble kitchen ingredient that's been used for centuries. Move 2, a specific kind of walk and exactly when to take it. Move 1, the seated movement behind that 52% number and why it may be the most useful of them all. Let's get into it. The hidden problem. Here's something that doesn't get explained often enough. After 50, and especially after 60, your pancreas tends to release insulin slightly slower, and your muscles become somewhat more resistant to its effects. That means the exact same meal that barely registered on your blood sugar at 30 now produces a sharper spike and a longer recovery. Quick pattern interrupt. Think about your own after-dinner numbers, if you track them. For many people over 60, dinner, the meal loaded with the most carbohydrates, produces the worst spike of the entire day. That's not a coincidence, and it's not simply bad luck. It's biology shifting with age, and it's directly addressable. Here's the reframe I want you to walk away with. Blood sugar management isn't only about restriction, eating less, cutting entire food groups, white-knuckling your way through meals. There's an entire second lever, what you do in the 3 hours after you eat, that most people never use at all. And the research on that window has become remarkably specific and remarkably actionable. I'm going to walk you through 4 moves, ranked from foundational to the most powerful. Number 1, don't skip ahead, because the final move works best once you understand the 3 that come before it. Move 4, change your food order. Here's something almost nobody explains clearly. The order food enters your mouth can meaningfully change your blood sugar response, even when the meal itself is identical. The mechanism is simple. When you eat vegetables and protein first and save bread, rice, or potatoes for last, that fiber and protein form a kind of soft barrier in your stomach. Carbohydrates are forced to trickle into your bloodstream more slowly instead of flooding it all at once. Your stomach empties more gradually, and your gut releases hormone signals that tell your pancreas to handle the incoming sugar calmly rather than reactively. This isn't theoretical. Research from Weill Cornell Medical College, published in the journal Diabetes Care, fed people with type 2 diabetes the exact same meal in 2 different orders. When vegetables and protein came before carbohydrates, blood sugar was roughly 29% lower at the 30-minute mark, 37% lower at 60 minutes, and 17% lower at the 2-hour mark. Same food, same calories, only the order changed. Separate research out of Japan using continuous glucose monitors confirmed that eating vegetables before carbohydrates flattened glucose spikes across an entire day, not just at one meal. I think about a patient I'll call Margaret, 64, who loved her evening pasta and watched her readings climb year after year. Without giving up a single dish she loved, she simply started eating her salad and chicken first and her pasta last. Within weeks, her after-dinner spikes were noticeably gentler. How to do it tonight. Eat your non-starchy vegetables and protein first. Wait 10 to 15 minutes if you can, then move on to your starches. Zero cost, zero equipment, and it pairs directly with the moves still ahead. Move 3, a splash of vinegar. If move 4 was about order, move 3 is about adding one humble ingredient that's been sitting in kitchens for centuries: vinegar. The active compound is acetic acid, and it works 2 ways. First, it slows the enzymes that break starch down into sugar, so carbohydrates release more gradually. Second, and this is the more remarkable part, it appears to make muscle cells more sensitive to insulin, helping them pull sugar out of the bloodstream more efficiently in the hours after eating. The landmark research here comes from Arizona State University, published in Diabetes Care. Participants drank a vinegar solution before a high-carbohydrate meal. In those who were insulin-resistant, a pre-diabetic pattern, insulin sensitivity improved by roughly 34%. In people with established type 2 diabetes, it improved by about 19%. A later systematic review pulling together dozens of trials confirmed the same direction. Vinegar before a carbohydrate meal meaningfully blunts both the glucose and insulin response. Why does this matter more with age? As insulin resistance naturally rises after 60, your body needs every bit of assistance getting sugar out of your blood and into your cells. Vinegar offers a quiet, no-prescription assist to that aging system. I think of a patient I'll call Harold, 68, who didn't want to give up his morning toast. He started mixing 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into a large glass of water about 10 minutes before breakfast. His morning numbers, which used to surge, began rising far more gently. How to do it safely. Mix 1 to 2 teaspoons, working up gradually to a full tablespoon, of any vinegar into a full glass of water, and sip it 5 to 10 minutes before a carbohydrate-heavy meal. Always dilute it to protect your teeth and stomach lining, and if you're on blood sugar medication, check with your doctor first, since combining interventions can shift your numbers more than expected. Combine this with Move 4, and you've now slowed your carbohydrates 2 separate ways before they've even reached your bloodstream. Move 2, the right walk at the right time. Food-based tricks can only take you so far. This next move taps into something far more powerful, your own muscles. When you walk after eating, your working muscles pull glucose directly out of your blood, largely without needing insulin to do it. Contracting muscle opens a separate pathway for sugar, one that keeps functioning even when your insulin response is sluggish. That's why a gentle walk right after a meal can flatten a spike that medication alone sometimes struggles with. Timing turns out to matter enormously. Research from the University of Otago, published in Diabetologia, found that walking just 10 minutes after each meal lowered post-meal blood sugar by roughly 12% on average compared to walking at a random time of day unrelated to meals. And the benefit jumped to a striking 22% after the evening meal specifically, the one typically loaded with the most carbohydrates. A separate study designed specifically for older adults from George Washington University, published in Diabetes Care, found that 3 short 15-minute walks after meals controlled blood sugar over a full 24-hour period just as well as 1 long 45-minute walk, and worked even better after dinner specifically. That research deliberately focused on adults 60 and older, precisely because that's when post-meal spikes become most consequential, and when short, gentle bouts of movement feel far more achievable than 1 long, exhausting session. I think of a patient I'll call Eleanor, 71, who found a single 45-minute daily walk too demanding on her knees. Instead, she switched to 3 easy 15-minute strolls, one after each meal, often just around her garden or down the block. Her 24-hour readings steadied noticeably, and her evenings, once her hardest stretch, became her most stable. How to start today. After each meal, especially dinner, take a 10 to 15-minute easy walk within about an hour of eating. No rushing, just a comfortable pace. Pair it with something you're already doing, walking the dog, running a small errand so it doesn't rely on willpower alone. Walking activates your large leg muscles. But there's one much smaller muscle, one you can activate without even standing up, that does this job even longer and with more than double the effect. That's move number 1. Move 1, the soleus push-up. This is the move I promised you at the very start, and it may be the most surprising thing in this entire video. Deep in your calf sits a small muscle called the soleus. It makes up roughly 1% of your total body weight, and yet it has a genuinely unusual property. Unlike almost every other muscle in your body, it can burn through blood sugar and blood fat for hours without fatiguing. And it does this best not while running or standing, but while gently activated in a seated position. Researchers at the University of Houston found a way to switch it on with a simple seated movement they named the soleus push-up. In their study, published in the peer-reviewed journal iScience in 2022, participants performed this movement after drinking a sugary beverage. The result? A 52% reduction in the post-meal blood sugar spike and roughly 60% less insulin required to manage that same amount of sugar. The lead researcher noted they were unaware of any medication, diet, or other form of exercise that sustains this kind of metabolic effect while a person simply sits still. A follow-up pilot study in 2024 in people with prediabetes found roughly a 32% reduction in glucose response, confirming the benefit extends to exactly the population that needs it most. Why is this such a meaningful gift specifically for older adults? After 65, prolonged sitting becomes more common and post-meal spikes become more consequential, yet vigorous exercise can feel harder, riskier, or simply less appealing. The soleus push-up sidesteps all of that entirely. No standing, no strain, no sweat. You can do it while watching television, reading, or sitting at the table after a meal. I think of a patient I'll call Frank again, the same Frank from the beginning of this video, who spent long evenings in his recliner watching his numbers climb. He learned to keep his soleus gently working while watching the evening news, and his after-dinner readings began settling in a way nothing else had managed, without any real effort on his part. Exactly how to do it. Sit with your feet flat on the floor, knees bent at roughly 90 degrees. Keeping the front of your foot planted on the floor, slowly raise your heels as high as comfortably possible, then lower them back down. A slow, steady, rhythmic motion, essentially a relaxed calf raise performed while seated. Aim for a comfortable, continuous rhythm for as long as feels sustainable. The original research had participants continue for extended periods while seated, but even shorter sessions done consistently after meals provide real benefit. Bringing it together. Here's the full stack in order. Eat your vegetables and protein first. Add a diluted splash of vinegar before carbohydrate-heavy meals. Take a short walk when your schedule allows it. And keep your soleus gently working while you sit through the rest. 4 moves, stacked, turning the 3 hours after every meal into one of the most powerful, low-effort tools available to you. The 3 mistakes. Mistake 1. Treating these as all or nothing. You don't need to do all 4 moves at every single meal to benefit. Start with 1. Food order is the easiest entry point, and layer in the others as they become habit. Mistake 2. Rushing the soleus push-up. Fast, jerky movement recruits other calf muscles instead of isolating the soleus properly. Slow and controlled is what the research protocol actually used and what produces the metabolic effect. Mistake 3. Skipping the post-dinner walk specifically. Of all the meals, dinner shows the largest measured benefit from post-meal movement, yet it's the meal most people skip walking after, since it's evening and energy is lower. This is exactly the walk worth prioritizing if you can only manage one a day. A simple 4-week plan. Week 1. Add food order at dinner only. Vegetables and protein first, carbohydrates last. What you'll notice? Not always an obvious feeling, but if you track your numbers, this is often where the first measurable change shows up. Week 2. Add the diluted vinegar drink before your highest carbohydrate meal of the day. What you'll notice? Combined with food order, many people notice steadier energy in the hour or two after that meal. Week 3. Add a 10 to 15 minute walk after dinner specifically. What you'll notice, evenings, often the hardest stretch for blood sugar control, start to feel noticeably calmer and more stable. Week 4. Add the soleus push-up during any seated time after meals, television, reading, sitting at the table. What you'll notice, by this point, most patients are running some combination of all 4 moves without much conscious effort. And that's exactly the goal. Safety note. If you take blood sugar or insulin medication, talk with your doctor before adding vinegar or significant new movement patterns, since the combined effect can lower your blood sugar more than any single piece alone, and your medication dosing may need adjustment. None of these 4 moves are a substitute for your prescribed treatment plan, they're a complement to it. Close. Here's what I most want you to take from today. It is never too late. Whether you're 55 or 85, your body still responds to these moves. Improvement is genuinely possible at any age, and the research on every single one of these 4 supports that directly. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need a complicated new diet. You need the 3 hours you already have after every meal, used a little differently than you have been. If this helped you, subscribe. I put out a new video every week. No fluff, just what actually matters for your health after 60. Next week, I'm covering the real reason your grip strength predicts how long you'll live, and a simple test you can do at home in under a minute. If today made sense to you, that one is going to land even harder. The smallest move made right after your next meal can genuinely change the shape of your day. Start at your very next meal. I'll see you next week.